Hello, everyone, and welcome to our circle and Salve Women. Today, we are going to talk about my reflections on predictions from sibling order. Is there such? And so I think to myself, probably I'm going to get some many different vantage points on this, which I would think is natural because there are those of us, like I mentioned in reflecting on this topic, is that there are those of us who have made it farewell, very, very well at being the oldest and at really having to carry the load of having the pressure of being the oldest and setting the tone for everyone else who then followed after them. And then all of a sudden finding that there were times where the younger ones got it easier. I mean, it always reminds me of the prodigal son, right, who came back and the older brother was a little bit infuriated. Well, I shouldn't say little, was quite infuriated that all of a sudden there was this party being thrown for the younger brother. And yet it's interesting because for me, being the youngest, it's a different vantage point, and of course there could have been ones that said you got the most love or so, but I honestly always felt like I didn't feel like if I didn't get it, which there were times where, I mean, God bless my mom. She had gone through some really, really hard times and having lost someone younger than I. And I always see myself as like really youngest living. And yet there are just things that you have to understand about your parents, that they're going through things. And so I always felt like I knew that. I knew that when she didn't hold me, when, I don't recall her ever placing me, in a blanket or wrapping me around, in one and just doing things that I felt like I could play as a mother myself, as a mother role. There was just this understanding, mama wasn't that way. Mama couldn't be that way as much as I would have perhaps thought that, I needed if I look back and I started to see that in life. It was never this connection where I thought to myself, well, it's because she was this way that I'm not that way. No, I felt like now I could play house and now I could do it my way, in the way that I had envisioned parenting as a mother. And no, far from being perfect, I always felt like I was striving for excellence in everything I did. And yet, there are just times where you think to yourself, you know what, I'm doing the best I can. And as I mentioned in this reflection, I believe that my papa saw that, just really doing the best I could to be this youngest child of the living five, and for some time. And as you know, in one of my reflections, we lost one of my brothers. So there were many things that our parents were going through. And I always felt like when people have issues, when people have what I call real drama happen around, you want to be the least of it. You don't want to feel like you're a burden. And so from even the youngest of age, I felt like I just had to do my best to entertain myself. When my siblings were out and about meeting with friends, typically my brothers would be able to go somewhere, and my sister never minded that. She loved staying in the home and just, finding the confines of in comfort of being at home. And for me, I was more of like a tree climber. I wanted to go outside and play in the dirt by myself, most of the time, because who was there, right? Other than my cousin who temporarily lived with us. But at that time it was like it was what it was. And I think to myself, when papa had inherited being the youngest of 9, amazing, and I would love to have met my paternal grandmother, and just papa always saying that I looked like a carbon copy of her. And I just think to myself, how fascinating to have raised 9 children. And with him saying the only difference is that she had more quieter demeanor. And I think to myself, I have always believed, even at this young age, and then as it became a parent, I'm like, I think that changes in time. And again, I always had this, without trying to make it seem like I'm putting myself on a pedestal, it was more of like I understood that people change in time. And I think to myself, there had to have been a time where she was a lot more, talkative, and a lot more of just more upfront with her thoughts, and more stubborn and more prideful. And then as time progresses, the more children you have, the more observant you become. And, the more that you kind of just allow things to simmer in and really reflect on what people have to say, because you realize realize and able for you to help your children and the children that you have impacted around you, me being a teacher, that they can teach you a lot just by listening. And coming from Papa, I've just remembered what he had said about being the the inheritor, or isn't that even a word? The one to have inherited all of his father's land after his father had passed away and his mother had passed as well. That there was such a turmoil between siblings. And from what he expressed, he was hoping to preserve most of it, if not all of it. But then it came to a point where then the discussion to divide among siblings was then the pressure of it. And so, it just goes to be that way. It's like when you're given the responsibility, some people may think, I can't believe that one went to this person. Where I hear at times is the greatest troubles when someone passes and then they are then passed on some inheritance, that ends up being the biggest piece of dispute amongst family members, is that everyone's trying to figure out or wanting a share of it. By the time that Papa had shared with me what he had gone through, and in what I also witnessed, having wished that I had really seen more love and peace amongst all of his siblings, and then just listening in to some of the dark paths, or I shouldn't say dark paths, but just the dark words that came about from the dispute, even being the youngest and having heard it, I can't imagine how long it had lasted. And so by the time that Papa was asking me, and really, just less than 24 hours. I hadn't, of course, known it at that time. But when I was in, the room and we were alone, and he had really asked me, how are you doing? And in just very serious, solemn, and I knew that this was not something, even though I always try to throw in a joke here and there, because that's just me, For me, I knew that he was asking a very serious question, and I just released myself of it all. It was just such a great freedom I gave him, and such peace. I saw in his eyes that he was processing it, and then he believed me and he trusted me when I said, my husband and I, we are happy and that we are comfortable, and I want nothing of whatever it is that you have to give, Papa, because you have been a really great father, and everything that you have to give me, you have already given. And so he was more, I expressed my concern for who would need it. And it was great for him to really honor that, in thinking that he and I had that one last moment of understanding. And to me, I never had any regrets, to a certain level of it, because regardless of what I had thrown in there as my opinion, I knew ultimately Papa was making the choice. And if anything, he was just listening in to what I had to say. And I would like to always think that parents already know. They just want to really hear it from their children as to their perspective. And I was at peace with that, of what I had made the decision to do, because freeing myself of any obligation also allowed me to give him the power to decide. And it was nice. It was like he had one less person to worry about as to, whatever share she would have wanted, because this one was out. And I had gotten more than enough from him being a part of my life. So it's interesting, because I think to myself that we have this independent choice, this fight, flight, freeze that I always mention. And I think to myself, is not goodness and success and mindset and not order? Because I hear these stories, and my husband and I sit here and, sometimes we listen to some shorts, and we're very good at making sure that what we're taking in will teach us something. And we learn about the generations to come, and that how you can prepare to make sure that you're sending it off in the right direction, and where you're not setting it up for the next generation to just anticipate it and then absolutely not do anything to grow it. Because I think when you plant a seed, you're the one who is really sowing the field, and you're tilling the land, and you're putting in the dirt, you're being in the dirt, and sometimes you're just waiting it out through all the storms and fighting through all of them to make sure that all of those seeds will propagate into something magnanimous and that you could be very thankful for, so that that way there would be more fruits to come for the next generations, and that you would never have to worry even after you leave. And even if people don't remember who you are, I mean, I think biblically, when we think about Joseph, right, after a while people just forgot the things that people do, and all of a sudden, like, you're thinking all of this just came out of nowhere with no effort at all. And it's important now, I realize, to really push that down and saying, you know what, this is something, and these are the reasons why I reflect. I want people to be able to look back and not so much remember me, my name, but really anything that you can get. I don't care if it's one good point in life that will direct you in the right pathway. That to me is something that I can look back and go, I did that. I led that person into the right direction. And then also I allowed people to like take shortcuts so they wouldn't have to endure any of the hardships that we may have had to. And again, although I've said it before, sometimes it's nice when people you can look and go, you know, I didn't do too bad. Even though I would never want to rewind and fall back, I want to, as Denzel Washington says, you know, to fall forward. That is what we're always striving to do. And that's what I would want my next generations in our offspring to be able to do as well. It's just keep falling forward no matter what. But the idea is that you have set it up. It doesn't matter what order that you came in, whether you're the oldest, the middle child, or the youngest, or wherever you fall in there. I look at it now as like it's the mindset thing. When I didn't have anything left by the time I came home, because I was the youngest, and high school students got out first, and so then to junior high and then elementary, it was always that sometimes you came home with nothing and you just go, okay, well, then what was there to eat, right? And so it was fine. We weren't the sit down type of people we were just busy life. And I continue and, that with my family. And sometimes when we do get to sit down, it's a beautiful thing. But at the same rate, it's like, I get that piece where you come in and you just go, okay, what's there for me? But you're not going to be spiteful. You're not going to sit here and put blame on anyone because your plate is empty or less of. You just then get creative and you go look and you find ways to just make your day great. And so I look at it from that perspective, and I think about all the many attention that my older siblings got. And was there, I really try to reflect and think to myself, was there ever a time that I said to myself, I have become less because they have gotten more? Never. There was always a way to turn things around, and I am no perfect angel by any chance. I've already admitted that I'm stubborn and I am definitely a rebel. I mean, my husband could give you stories till this day that I am that way. And it is who you are. But that side in me that Papa planted of just follow the 10 commandments, it grows from there. It's like, when you plant a seed, you realize that it not only stays with you, but then it branches off to other things. And when you plant a good seed, good things come out of that. And so I realized that who I am today, I have really, truly no one to blame, because all of my interactions, all of my engagements, it has made me ultimately who I am by choice of what I have decided to become and continue to become. And I think to myself, each and every one of us should always feel that way. It's like, okay, even though that was harsh, even though that was really a time of just great pain perhaps, and endurance, it's made me stronger and better because of it. And that's how you have to look at it. You can't just expect to lose 20, 30 pounds and not do the work to do so. And there's just no magic anything to do it the right way, to do it the healthy way in heart, mind, body, and spirit. And I've done that in myself, in that really truly self-healing of understanding. And this is why I always suggest that these reflections are something that, if it's just one thing that you can get out of anything positive that then drives you to want to reflect on your own life and go, how could I do this better? Because even if you don't want to look back, you don't have to. And that is me, all can follow as I said, the 10 commandments and more. And there's nothing about that that has to do with order or whatever it might be. I know I've talked to other people. I've said, what are your beliefs and what are some things that you guys follow? And there are some that say, oh my gosh, there's so much that we abide by. And I think that's amazing, but when I listen to what they abide by, I think to myself, oh my goodness, that really just comes about from the seed of what I was taught. And again, having the 10 commandments that really followed through with that. And then I'm thinking to myself, it really roots itself. No matter what, when you plant that goodness will come about from every person, and it is their ultimate joy, and then their ultimate just glory of peace that has been gifted to them to then choose that direction, because you cannot make anyone choose if they so choose to do a different way, and it's just a different path, and all you can do is do your best to guide. And so with that said, I have said, when eyes are on you or not, do you blame order? And I think to myself, that is what we have to really come to accountability with, is, was there really a big impact on who you are today because of the order that you found yourself in? Or when it's your turn, do you just make a point to shine and to light the way, for yourself under the guidance of really what you have been already created to do, the masterpiece that you are, that God has already appointed you to become? And are you really truly just fighting against yourself and finding blame on others that have only just tested you to see how much of your masterpiece are you willing to take in and accept of yourself, and therefore be fruitful for the next generations to follow? That is my thought today. So in the words of my mother, God bless us all. Thank you always for listening and just entertaining my thoughts and reflections. I'm going to start calling these here eventually the journal. And so that when I then have this to pass on, I know that people who will listen know that it's okay to grow along with your words and along with your thought process, so that every reflective moment can be accepted as that very moment to then take in and just think it was all positive, though. There was never, hopefully, that message where you were thought to quit or just stop or deny anything that was good, because I would hope to think that you are thinking, no, I have my victories because I already saw it, I envisioned it, and I went forth. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.